It ends now, looking for the team fight. The Call of the Force got thrown down by Nilly.
I got introduced to League from a friend of mine, and we just played a lot of normals together, and it was really fun. At first, the game felt like really hard, or like I couldn't really understand anything that was happening. It was like it took some time to like even know the basics. Like I think the game is really fun still. Like I think it got even more fun lately. I like the top lane champions right now, and it's just I enjoy it a lot still after many years.
As End just put on a complete dominating game versus the likes of Singularity.
So unlike the last game, this game holds big implications for Group B. Barrage versus MNM, and obviously with MNM at the bottom of the table, Barrage closely followed. This is going to be huge, I think, for the overall standings.
I feel like Barrage is the only team in the league that are in the middle of the playground. They're not out, but they're not in. They're running away from the hot seat of the relegations, while they're also trying to catch Dusty to snatch that ticket off of them and take it themselves. So I think it's do or die for them this game.
Absolutely. There's so much fluidity with where they can go. And the important thing with this match, though, is MNM. Their fate is dictated on this one game. If they lose, MNM are in relegations. There is no opportunity for them to change that. So they need to step up now. We've seen improvements from the roster, but this is where it matters.
Yeah, and you're talking about they need to step up. I feel like this is not really the roster where we can demand them to step up, because quite frankly, they have been looking good with this roster. Granted, we've only seen like, what, 2 games off them so far, but with the addition of energy and putting Monk back into the bot lane, this team suddenly looks incredibly strong. We have even seen them take a game off Trick last week, and they are on the upswing. So this could be a very interesting game.
I was just going to say Monk did carry one game, but he did.
You're not wrong. So this is the question then, like in this particular game, like how do they play to win? What is the strength of this MNM roster?
I think it's aesthetic. I think ultimately they've shown that when they get to the later game team fights, that Monk and Energy can be those reliable backline carries that they now have in the team. But getting there is all about aesthetic. And it's not necessarily him being a carry in the likes of the Graves we saw early in the split. He showed that he can do that in the likes of Volibear. We saw that on Set up against Tricked. And it's him sort of providing the tools for his team to have success. It's him finding the skirmishes, finding the gank setup, and challenging the enemy jungler. Ultimately, Aesthetic now has strong teammates to play for, and as long as he can be given the priority to do so, I think MNM have a real shot at this.
Yeah, sorry, I was, as you can hear, I've got an extra person joining the broadcast for me. Guys, let's have a look at the other side of the coin then. It's Barrage, and they have been very up and down, although they're not without their strengths, but it doesn't seem to me like they have quite found where they're supposed to be in terms of a team.
I feel like I was the first one who completely and utterly believed in Barrage. They have an extremely skilled lineup individually. They are so good at the champions they're playing, and even if you take them out of these champions, they still can perform very well, but sometimes they look a little bit shaky. So it feels like when they get in with a good draft, you're like, wow, this is what Barrage would draft, and they're gonna play absolutely great. They've got the basics down, but basics are not enough when you're facing teams that on paper are better than you.
And you know what? You believed in them in the beginning, but just like the captain of Barrage, I feel like you will go down with that ship, because the players of Barrage, they have been looking quite lost when you get to the mid to late game. Not only as a team perspective, but also just individual. I think that Trick just highlighted what Barrage players does. If you paid attention to Eric, that was basically the Voxner last week, where he was on a Jhin, just pushing tier 2 turrets alone out of nowhere, easy to get kills on him. And that's just the story of the players of Barrage. They are looking extremely scattered, and they're looking struggling in the mid to late game.
And that's my concern, because if we see a strong early game come out from MNM, I think we could see Barrage just flop. And often we see mid laners at a Jadron that don't heavily contest the mid priority. I'm looking at things like the Vigor, the Kassadin. If they pick one of those, if Energy can shove up and assist his jungler, and we don't get the strong early start from Barrage, then mid to late game has shown that it is up for them to fail. So we could see them fall on their faces in this situation. I want to see them challenge the early game. I want to see more priority around their mid lane at Jadron. And ultimately, I think that is what they need to find a chance in this match.
So what are we expecting coming into this match then? If you are to just paint a picture for me about how you think this is going to go down, what am I expecting with Barrage versus MNM?
Well, just as Dan quickly announced, they have a solid laning phase every now and then on the side of Barrage. And to be fair, I haven't really seen them completely in their early laning phase. It's as soon as Barrage gets out of that laning phase, when they're in the decision-making period of time, the mid to late game, when, as Dan just mentioned, they have to contest priority around the Drakes, it starts to falter for them. They look struggling, and in the end, they just crumble.
So are we talking about Barrage winning early Gilbog or Barrage winning late?
I mean, that's the thing, right? Because Barrage usually are the team to play late game, but then again, I only see them win the early phase and then throw it away in the late game.
I'm just going to have to take the side of Dan here as well. It feels like MNM do have a very strong early game aggressive team. And if they do run away with it, it feels like out of our weaker teams, they are the one that knows how to close this out. We haven't seen them necessarily with a lead that they weren't able to close. One that they got, they did win the game. And I feel like Barrage is one of these teams that will allow this to happen in the early game. And figuring from what we've said before, with them having trouble in the mid to late, I don't see how they could turn this around.
Well, it's going to be an interesting match, regardless of what we think will happen. The result is going to impact Group B a lot, especially for both of these two teams. To reiterate, if MNM lose, that's it, relegated. They're going to relegation battles, and they're going to have to fight for their spot in the NLC. If they win, there is still that two-horse race between Barrage and MNM to escape that 6th position. This does mean a lot. After break, we have Champion Select. Don't go anywhere.
Up. We're nearly in sync, but not in step just yet. When you time that look, you know this can't be second best. It's all in the timing. There's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just a short way or the long way. Get there together in our own way. Just the short way or the long way. Get there together in our own way. We'll slow us down.
All right, we're into picks and bans, and I think I kind of want to build on some of the points that were made just before we jumped in here. You know, you talked a little bit about Barrage's laning phase. What do we want them to draft to enable one of their strengths? Because I think that the vibe that I'm getting is that the laning phase has been something that we felt has been a stronger point for Barrage overall. What do we want to see them draft?
I want to see them go for something that's easy to execute. We often see these comps that we talk about a lot, the ones that have very straight up engaged, strong team fighting, good backline, good tanks on the front line. That's what I want, because they can clearly get out of the lane with the lead. And after that, the execution becomes a little bit complicated. So make the composition simple, something that essentially plays itself. And then from there, you can transition your lead into something more significant. I think things like Cassidy, as powerful as they become, can be a little bit tricky to pull off.
And now when these bans come out, like the Nunu, like the Cassidy, you got room for simplicity. There's a lot of power picks open, Volibear still up and available, Ashe, all these champions who've got base DC, who's a nice backline damage, and then you can draft around the front line if you really need that. That is just the foundation of your simplicity of the draft here. So, wow, even a Sona ban. So there is still Volibear up and available here, for example.
And if I jump over to the other side for MNM, I would really like to see them play the map like they did before. They pretty much put all their baskets into all their eggs into Monk's basket, and it ended up working out greatly with that Kai'Sa that he picked, because he was sort of like an assassin jumping from lane to lane with that Kai'Sa, punishing their opponents. I want to see this again. I want to see everything from Monk. I was promised the Monk carry. I saw it. Now I want more.
Ezreal is still available, though, to be fair. Ezreal is still available. You know, that we could see the Karma Ezreal lane that we've seen a little bit, you know, of in the past as well. But I guess we'll just have to see on that first rotation for MNM.
Yeah, I think it's already a bit rough seeing the Karma go over to MNM, because if they pick something for energy in the backline, if Monk has a solidity carry, it essentially gives you such a massive advantage in those front-to-back team fights, because the shielding is not only going to help keep your backline safe, but also help your front line be stronger. This is an aesthetic special, something you played last split, even when no one else was really picking it up, to great success. And on top of that, we're talking backline safety. This is it in a nutshell. It's going to be very hard to threaten the backline of MNM here, and Barrage need to quickly work out what they can respond with.
Especially because we've seen the drafts coming out from Barrage so far, and even if they went from easy to execute team fighting, well, now you're playing against a Kindred, so you need something to knock her out. We haven't seen Flipper and Lee Sin yet, I believe, so that champion might also be out of the question. So, really good adaptations coming out from MNM, together with the Karma pick who can get priority to actually enable this Kindred at the same time.
And also, I'd like to mention the likes of Karthus and Syndra going unseen completely in the draft. I feel like MNM are thinking one step forward. What if the Global comes in? What if the Syndra comes in? The Kindred can very easily nullify both of these ultimates from the two very strong champions. So they're thinking one step ahead, and they're driving Barrage away from maybe what their plan was.
Yeah, but interesting seeing the Misfortune come out, but essentially it does have a ton of team fighting power in this situation. You have the Lulu to support it, but on the other side, we see that Kog'Maw come in. Now, it could still be that AP Kog'Maw mid, but I think this may well be Monk's Kog'Maw pick. This is our last chance to get our relegations. It's a speciality of his, and it does mean if you do try and tackle Monk and you don't have a plan to take him down, you're going to find this extremely difficult.
It's really interesting because they actually picked obviously they picked up the Lulu, but obviously the classic Kog'Maw Lulu lane was always that menace a few seasons ago. But when Monk was known on, and when he kind of generated that nickname or that phrase, Monk will carry, it was because of his Kog'Maw AD carry. That was kind of the pick that generated the fame for Monk on the solo queue ladder. So if this is indeed going to Monk, which to be honest with you, I assume it is, this is a chips are down, MNM wants to win, let's make Monk kind of really comfortable back in that AD carry role.
It actually makes so much sense if they do prefer to go for the Juggernaut with the Karma shields and everything, or even you can put a Janna onto him and then nullify a potential cannon up the top lane in your opponent team, throw him back out. But the fact that you've seen Misfortune and Lulu in the lane, there's no initial heavy dive onto the Kog'Maw, so they're gonna have to be extremely creative to try and reach the backline. And once you do, the Kindred is there. So I'm already really liking what I'm seeing from MNM.
And now you're talking about the backline. To fulfill the identity of the MNM composition coming out here, I need that juicy front line. Are you seeing the bands like Asir? I don't know necessarily if Asir would have been, well, it's probably the best blind pick, but you really just need someone who can be a tank in this scenario. You got 3 ranged characters as of right now from MNM. Now you need that juicy front line to protect you.
I was
There
just
she
gonna say,
is.
I think Orianna suits perfectly here. Extra shielding, even more so. You've now got an alternative threat as well. You've got 2 in the Kindred and the Orianna. So even if they put everything onto the Kog'Maw and Kog'Maw's CC'd or struggling to kite, you have extra damage threats to provide. All we really want to see here from MNM to round out the comp is a tank on the front line with engage potential. I think that's the ideal thing for the team. So something like an Ornn makes a lot of sense to me. For Barrage, we need to see something that can answer this, because right now it's simply not going to work. They're going to go for this Cho'Gath, which does have early pressure, can get some momentum going, but I feel like Barrage are now in a situation where if they make a single mistake in that mid to late game, as we talked about, they will fall flat in their face.
I would love. Oh, sorry, Gilbo, go ahead.
I was just gonna quickly say, but it also, we said that they had a solid laning phase on the side of Barrage, so if they suddenly have fixed their struggling issues in the mid lane, mid game, and they're more decisive, they might have a shot at this. But Vladimir coming in here, he's gonna be the one to blow up this Kog'Maw, but there's gonna be a lot of shielding, as Stan said.
I would love to see, honestly, a Braum right here for Monk in the bot lane. You stop the Misfortune bullet time, and also you have 2 auto-attack champions in the likes of Kindred and Kog'Maw. Anyone who gets anywhere near that Braum trying to dive the backline will instantly get stunned, resulting into a massive shockwave. So it wouldn't necessarily be bad seeing the mustache man down there. Oh, it's going to be the Karma.
Yeah, it'll be the Karma in support role, and obviously, like Dan said, just an engage tank support in the top side of the map. I think there was flexibility between the Cho'Gath and the Vladimir here, by the way, with Jadran, I think, being able to play the Cho'Gath mid, and I think that made picking a top laner actually quite difficult, because you either go into a Cho'Gath or you go into a Vladimir, and they can switch that between mid and top, which was definitely something to obviously keep our eyes on this draft. It looks like Dreedy will be taking the Vladimir to the top lane.
You're quite smart host.
Very quickly then, Dan, like, what are your final thoughts here?
We're looking at Barrage. They really need to just find backline access, execute. They've given themselves some tools to do so. The silence from the Cho'Gath, the knock-up, and the damage from the MF Vladimir is key. But I think if we're talking ease of execution, MNM have got this. If they can maneuver the early mid-game, they should have this one in the bag.
Well, I guess this is the game to truly test that theory of Monk will carry. And the casters, they're going to give us our answer. We'll see how it goes.
I don't know if I'm going to give you the answer, Scoundrel, but I'm sure Monk will be the one to answer that one. Right, so as we're getting ready to go into our second game, this game is very important for both of the teams. MNM, by some miracle, are still in the runnings. Not for playoffs, but at least for avoiding relegations. A win here is how they get that. They're going versus Barrage, and I would argue Barrage have had some really, really stellar laning phases. Their issue has been coming out of the laning phase. MNM, it's been the other way around for them. They've had some really good performances as we move later, and I know they're 1-7, so they have not had that many games to go that well for them. But they have had like convincing games, at least with this new roster they've got. Eliwood going in the bot lane with Monk has been pretty exciting. So for me, it's how the laning phase is going to go down is probably going to decide a lot about this game.
Which means then we need to focus on kind of the tools that Barrage have in their lane phase to actually try to take a bite, if you will, out of MNM. And I think that starts with the Volibear and particularly the Cho'Gath, especially because Cho is fitted into this mid lane position. Now with Glacial and on a shorter lane, Cho actually has some surprising kill pressure in tandem with the Volibear because he has great reach with his Rupture, and once he can walk you down, like if Ori ever finds herself overextended in this lane, there's huge kill pressure there. So that's what I'm looking for Flipper and Yarden. Is that how you say it?
Yadrin is how I've been saying it. I could be wrong on that, but I've been saying Yadrin all season long.
I wasn't even close. You were much closer than I went. I think this is the lane that Barrage tried to attack with this Volibear.
We'll have to see what the game plan will be for them.
On the other side, I think it's pretty obvious that Monk needs to carry here, survive through the lane phase, get to that Ardent Sensor, get to 2-item Kog'Maw, and try to scale from there.
The thing about Monk is he's very efficient at Kog'Maw. In a game where he's playing well on Kog'Maw, he looks devastating. On a game where he's not having such a hot performance on Monk, he's really good at utilizing the passive.
Perfect. It's, I think, about maximizing your damage output.
He's mastered the champion in all aspects you can master.
If you're not using your passive, are you truly using Kog'Maw?
So this is the question. Is a good Kog'Maw good at using the passive or never gets to use the passive?
I don't know. I think it's a weird champion and needs to be reworked a little bit. Let's kind of talk about what side both these laners need to stand on. I think it's actually really important that Kog'Maw tries to stand on the Lulu side of the lane as opposed to the MF side of the lane. Now, obviously, if he can sidestep the double up passive, that would work really appropriate for him. But I like Lulu standing on MF side because she can try to outrange her with the Q and try to punish that range difference there. So when I'm talking about standing on the sides of the lane, basically how they're set up right now. Kog'Maw standing on Lulu's side, Karma standing on MF side, and again, trying to use the lane as they swap around. We'll see if Monk and Eli there also swap around or if they actually just leave it as it is.
Early prior as well for Barrage in this bot lane. Pretty much expected, realistically.
This is one of those things right there. Is actually a really good example that even if you have a lane, depending on how the trade matchups go, that you can try to fight back in. If you stand on the wrong side of it, you can really just throw a lot of your advantage. Lulu is one of the few champions that can match Karma's range, and so she can fight back with a lot of those Qs. So I think it's something to look for from Monk and Wood as mid lane.
Ooh. Both get taken up there. That actually would have been a lot of damage onto Yadrin had that third auto connect from a Speartick and you got the leap out from Wolf. Kakan's got a lot of shove here in the top lane. I would say expected at the moment. Dreedy obviously needs to get a few more points put into that transfusion to max it out and kind of maximize the amount of damage and sustain he has. Well, Kakan's pretty just, he's happy into AP top laners. This is where Maokai thrives.
And he's going to feel really safe recognizing that Flipper started on top side of the map and so doesn't have any camps available. Now that his jungler aesthetic has taken bot side Scuttlecrab, needs to be a little bit more cautious, and you can see that Kakan actually walking down river, checking on Crab as aesthetic's trying to use the priority to contest for double Scuttle. Energy
has to run away. They get the knockout. That's first blood. Aesthetic was just somewhere else. It's a lot of damage off of the Flipper and Kakan. No! He gets knocked up. I think Kakan's dead. The shots come through and Kakan survives. Somehow, that goes from pretty bad to kind of bad.
Yeah, the Maokai trying to pull that one back out in the very end. It was Karma, excuse me, not Karma. It was Kindred that was looking for the double Scuttle punish, trying to, again, use the priority from energy, but just not quite thinking it all the way through. And Barrage doing a good job recognizing that they had a window to try to punish. So taking another look at this one, Flipper comes flying out of the woodwork. They knew that he was top side of the map, but definitely not that close.
Dreedy in for a lot of hurt here. He's already used the blood pool. Aesthetic not able to find a kill as he gets knocked up and Yadrin just pops him. Energy a little bit slower to the turnaround as Flipper's making his way up. They do get the slows down and Yadrin's now going to take a lot of damage. Has to flash away, but he lands the rupture onto Energy. Energy has to flash out from the Sky Splitter. Another teleport's coming in. This fight is continuing. Energy goes down. Kakan has nowhere to go. Jumps in as he goes splash. Kakan finds the kill. And Barrage still come out on top.
I'm going to say the lane phase is going as a disaster, though. But fortunately for Barrage fans, I guess on their side of the camp, that was a lot of teleports. This is the strangest game that I've seen in a long time. Or excuse me, the strangest laning phase that I've seen in a long time. Why is he even up here? Okay, so we start this replay with Dreedy coming in on the TP on the back end. I guess that's going to help because the Vladimir was shoved under his tower pretty significantly. Now having a kill in his back pocket is going to really help with that itemization. I don't know. This is wild.
This is crazy. I want to ask though, who do you think this favors? Because the Death Squad highlighting with Barrage and their playstyle, they want to have a good laning phase to transition into, you know, the mid to late game, because that's where their issues have come. MNM are a team who seem to be better as it goes later. Barrage are up at the moment, although that dragon did get picked up from MNM. How do you feel this is kind of favoring the expectations so far?
I mean, I think in terms of like just raw itemization that these kill gold have given over, the fact that Cho'Gath's able to walk really early into lane with the Hextech revolver and have, you know, a bit more sustain to just kind of sit in that lane on top of everything else that he's going to bring is probably going to be pretty significant for fighting for priority and continuing to apply pressure like this. Like Flipper doesn't necessarily have to kill Energy, but I just think that this mid lane of where Energy gets to do anything other than farm is virtually over.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really rough. Kakan though, 2-1 on the Maokai, going in onto Dreedy, and Dreedy's going to take a pretty horrible trade. The passive Kakan means he's going to be okay as well in these fights.
Yeah, he'll walk it off, and he's got good wave placement. He can actually hold it in front of his tower if he'd like, but likewise, Kakan can feel really comfortable to continue to pressure and shove it in because he has eyes on Volibear with that nicely placed ward right over the Raptor camp. So Kakan, I believe in week 3 we got to see some of his Poppy performance, and I think since then he's actually stood out to me as one of the better top laners in the NLC. I think that even on tanks he manages to always have high impact, so I'm pretty excited to see how he's going to impact these teams for his, or excuse me, these fights for his team, especially on such a powerful pick like a Maokai that is so integral to this composition, starting any fights with the only hard engage.
Yeah, he's just getting a free bully around onto Dreedy. Obviously, Dreedy will scale up on the Vladimir. That's what he does best. Level 6 at the moment, so has got the Hemo Plague available.
Like, let's be honest. If we thought that Cho'Gath is unmovable in this mid lane, this Maokai is unmovable. Not only because he's against a Vladimir, but also his crystal there as here comes Cho.
Yeah, he's going to throw the Nature's Grasp, gets the taxi away from Yadrin, needs to avoid the feast as Kakan able to survive the dive.
So good.
He is actually really popping off right now.
He was good on the Poppy. He was just, it's hard to be a good player on a really shit team, and Kakan does manage.
He's holding out. Aesthetic gets himself a nice kill, flash forward, and down goes Dreedy. Kakan gets the free shove. Just go for a base.
Yeah, and that's Aesthetic just kind of capitalizing on everything that Kakan had set up for himself right there, surviving the gank. Nice little sidestep on the Rupture. And again, just, I'm a Kakan fangirl. What can I say?
I'm a bit of a Kakan fan after this. I've been following Kakan for a while.
Are you like a woo girl, or are you like a, what kind of fan are we talking here, Hitbrain?
I'm like a, I'm the fan that likes every tweet, but never comments. Aesthetic is going to get jumped onto. Shockwave is actually going to get dodged away for the moment. Aesthetic gets polymorphed, the heals on, does have that ultimate available, but doesn't need to pop it. As MNM find their kill onto the jungler, and this means they can go for Rift Herald.
I mean, about as good as you could have gotten there from Flicker to try to turn that one around, but ultimately it's MNM that, despite kind of a disastrous early phase, have started to come back into this early game, have the early rotation to get faster tempo numbers advantage on this Rift Herald. That will certainly help them, especially because we expect them to put it into Kog'Maw's back pocket, continue to scale up Monk as he's closer and closer to that Bork.
Yeah, it's got the Bio Arcane Barrage as well now, so a bit more wave clear available to Monk. And he's just going to move back into his jungle.
Yeah, and at this point of the game, again, kind of checking on initial item buys, Maokai, unmovable. He's now got the Negatron Cloak. Vladimir's only level 7, so still doesn't have 5 points in that queue. And could also set up some pretty easy kills for his Kindred, because you can already see that Aesthetic is doing pretty significant damage here. So I actually really like the lane, not lane state, but kind of like state of the lanes that MNM have going for them. They didn't just get completely shut out in this early game, and with a composition that scales as hard, this is exactly where you want to be if you're trying to avoid relegation.
Yeah, it's super crucial for both of these teams as well, because Barrage, they are in a very weird place where they can go up and they can go down. They're currently in that no man's land where they won't make playoffs, but, well, they can make playoffs, but at the moment they're not in playoffs. And
trying to chase Dusty for that last playoff spot, and this is a must win, and then they have their fate in their own hands and can take the head-to-head over Dusty when they face them tomorrow. So obviously pressure on for Barrage, make sure that they put in the time and effort to take down MNM and didn't look past this opponent.
Very, very important game here for MNM though, because if MNM win this, they tie the head-to-head versus Barrage, and if they end out in a tiebreaker with them, that could be the difference between them making relegation and, well, avoiding relegation and actually going in. Yeah, basically.
Here's the Herald play that we were talking about. Again, Kindred is also just shadowing to allow Wood and Monk to safely walk up to this Cloud Drake. If a skirmish breaks out, it's going to be a pretty easy rotation into Herald for some nice tower plates. And it looks like Barrage actually just going to let this one go.
It's only the second Drake. It feels like one they weren't really set up to contest, so Barrage are just going to step away and give that over to MNM. We are looking at an Infernal Soul. Actually, really, really nice for MNM if they can get their hands onto that. The amount of additional poke you can get out with those Bio-Arcane Barrages from distance. Monk's going to step up into Demvox knee and take a pretty neutral trade, I'd say. They both went just about as low as each other.
He actually just wants to take a pretty heavy trade here. I think he was trying to set up a slow push because, again, Aesthetic sneaking into the back of the lane here. They want to try to chunk out MF and Lulu to make this Herald drop pretty safe. So he has no problem with Face taking some of the damage, although they are very slow to set up on this Herald. And you can see that Show and Volibear are moving down for a counter flank. We'll see if MNM have gotten out in time because they need to back up right now.
Teleport's available on Energy and Kakan. Plates are going to get picked up for Aesthetic and only Aesthetic. So that's actually denied from Monk, and I think Barrage, the charge came down and they were able to deny anything else. I think they can be pretty happy with that play.
Yeah, really nice. Credit to Wood also moving out into the flank, just as we were crediting Wazer just the last game. I'm constantly checking flanks and making sure that the team has enough time to disengage from any sort of play. So good job from, what is it, Ellie Wood, Eli Wood?
I say Ellie Wood, but everyone else has been saying Eli Wood. So I'm going to go with Eli Wood.
Sir Eli Wood.
I'm sure someone at MNM can just ping me and let me know exactly how to say the name.
Yeah, let me open up Twitter. Okay,
right,
so completed. No, I got you. Completed items coming in. The plates went down to Kog'Maw's hands. At this point now, ooh.
He's fine.
You're walking off. You're okay.
He had to heal.
At this point, you're still looking at kind of completed itemization for the Karma and the Orianna before you feel super confident grouping up and moving kind of pieces around the map and looking to team fight if you're MNM. So I think they're actually going to handshake a little bit and continue to farm out their lane phase. Obviously, if you find an opportunity, you're going to take it. Whereas now I look at Barrage and I want to see them hit the accelerator a little bit. You got 3 minutes until the next Drake is spawning. You can still try to force things, perhaps with these teleports that you have available on your Cho'Gath as well as your Volibear. So if any action does happen, I would expect that it's Barrage that are kind of pushing the tempo, whereas MNM are totally in cruise control right now. They feel super confident picking up these plates, picking up this farm, and continuing to scale.
Yeah, Monk just chipping away at these plates. Actually looks to jump onto Nightmares. Gets so much damage off. That's that Blade of the Ruined King. Oh. Eli lands a massive Q onto Nightmares and Denvoxney as well. They're going to have to reset soon, and MNM just happy to continue to shove. Kakan just bullying away on Dreedy. I feel like no one's killing anyone at this point. Dreedy's maxed the transfusion, so has got the healing as actually the flash comes in. Aesthetic does have the ultimate. It's just way too slow. Gets himself a kill in response, but Flipper, very, very tanky bear, slapping away at Aesthetic. Actually jumps back in with one more dance of arrows and half health Flipper by the end of that.
So it's as we said, it was Volibear and Cho'Gath that were going to try to force something. Now, I did want to give credit to Energy and Kakan. I actually really like what they were doing. They were being hyper aggressive in their lanes, not just because of their individual matchups, but because they were drawing pressure. They were making sure that their lane opponents were locked down to allow this Monk and Eli to push the tower and continue to punish the advantage that they had gotten over this Misfortune and this Lulu. By keeping the Vladimir and the Cho'Gath busy in the lanes, it allowed their bot lane to continue to scale and just kind of run rampant. And there's the item breakpoints that we were talking about. We were waiting for Orianna to complete her first item. We were waiting for the boots to come in for Kog'Maw. Karma ever so closer to getting that Ardent Sensor that she needs. Not quite there yet, but that's now the go button. Suddenly, MNM are starting to take over to this point where they're going to feel more confident looking for skirmishes. So we were in a small window where it was all going to be about Barrage, potentially looking for how they could get this volley and this Cho'Gath to break. They had a desperation play. Now, the shoe is on the other foot. MNM have completed the items. They're going to feel confident to apply pressure.
Bye-bye, Eli. Shockwave lands. Aesthetic jumps in as Flipper's going to take a lot of damage, but the rest of the team are making their way forward. But it still does have the Lamb's Respite. And we were just highlighting how, you know, MNM was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. And Yadrin just two shots the support.
Just make a single mistake. Again, I think the idea was sound there from MNM, but people don't often face a Cho'Gath. The range can often catch you out. Hopefully MNM can finish off this Rift Child and then translate that into pressure on a tower to hopefully get advantageous positioning on this Infernal that's spawning in 18 seconds.
For me, one of the things you highlighted at the beginning was how Kakan has, you know, been a real standout player for his team.
That's a weird way to say God.
Yadrin is actually the player on Barrage who's been in a very similar position. I might have to hold that though, as Gon jumps in onto Flipper. Bullet time goes out by Denvoxney. It doesn't really do too much damage, but Yadrin just zoning everyone else away. The Lamb's Respite is going to get used by Aesthetic to keep himself alive as the heal comes down. The teleports are coming in, and MNM actually getting caught away. Dreedy just jumps onto Aesthetic, gets a massive combo off, and bye Aesthetic. A shutdown picked up for the Vladimir, and MNM now in a 4 versus 5.
obviously advantageous because you're missing your jungler if you're MNM, which means you can't just immediately turn on to the Drake. I also like the fact that Dreedy is continuing to hard shove the mid lane in. Again, trying to force MNM out of this one. Because Aesthetic has fallen down, I think this will mean the Drake, unless a miracle steal comes in for Barrage. There we go.
Yeah, without their jungler, it's going to be a very optimistic attempt to try and stop that. That was just a good punish. Dreedy just finding the shutdown onto Aesthetic. Yadrin got a big knock up onto him as well. And these two, the two solo laners for Barrage, have been a bit of standout players across the season for me. Especially Yadrin. I want to go back to Yadrin because we saw him get a solo kill on Magic Felix at the beginning of the season when he was playing Kassadin into a 3F. And this was pre-level 6. He's just had a really, really good season, but it feels like the team has not quite been there with him. And it's been these mid games that have been worrying. And so far, Barrage, their mid game hasn't been as worrying as previous games.
I think it helps at kind of this point that all you really need to do is be grouped up, and they have a relatively easy to execute 5v5, if you will. You know, having a Vladimir, having a Misfortune, a Cho'Gath, it's pretty straightforward. In terms of kind of what Barrage need to do at this point next, because their Cho is so powerful, it's finding the correct lane assignments and making sure that, you know, if you are sending your Cho or your Vladimir into a side lane, that you're shadowing them appropriately with Flipper on this Volibear to actually punish something. And where I want him is with this Cho'Gath. So I'm super excited to see the assist pings coming out of this Cho on the top side and trying to catch out Monk, because this is where Barrage can try to bypass some of their weak mid game and just start forcing things with picks and kills.
Yeah, constantly sitting in the pocket of Yadrin. Monk actually walking back up there was a little bit worrying for a moment, but he is able to step away to safety.
He is the Juggernaut. He's now got the completed Ardent Sensor from Eli there. I love to ask this question. In my opinion, the support is walking the dog of the Kog'Maw, and it helps because it's a Pugma skin. But some people think that the support is the dog of the AD carry at this point. Like, where do you stand in the situation? Is Eli the dog to Monk, or is Monk the dog to Eli?
No, Eli is actually the secret carry. I always think an enchanter with like a hyper carry is always the secret carry. It looks flashy, but all Monk's doing is right clicking.
I think it's really about like who's like the alpha and who's the beta in this relationship.
Yeah. I feel this is all Eli. The bullet time's actually going to go out just to clear out the wave, but Monk's just going to hang around to take the turret down. And
yeah, really good job forcing it.
Beautiful force by MNM. Spooky Ghosts have been sent forward, and Eli and Aesthetic will be the ones getting connected onto, but they're going to be able to make their way to safety underneath the tier 1 turret.
The nice thing about that force is that while the Spooky Ghost did come out, and I do want to talk about Cho's build in a second, short of it is super cost efficient. Really love it. The long of it is that Cho wasn't in a side lane picking up farm or pressuring any sort of tower because Barrage had put down a ton of resources to try to catch people out. So obviously still trying to catch people out, but it does mean that they're delayed to this play. You know, if the force is coming out from MNM mid lane, that could have been a nice trade for Barrage on this top tower. Instead, they're kind of wandering between mid, maybe trying to force top, and they're not getting anything, and they're also not farming while this has happened. Whereas if you look at Little Monk, he's now walking down the mid lane. He's like, hells yeah, there's no pressure on this Kog'Maw. I'm going to continue to farm up. So it's in these tiny windows where Barrage look lost in their lane assignments. They look lost on trying to force something onto the map that MNM are getting these small advantages over them.
I really appreciate the toggle of the vision actually there from our observer, because Monk is even. There's a 100 gold lead between him and Den Voxney, and that favors Monk. Den Voxney on this MF wanted to be further ahead at this point. At the 20-minute mark, you want the Misfortune Leona to go ahead, to be ahead, because Monk's silently farming up and staying equals fine for him. The more items he gets, the later the game goes, the stronger he will be. So this really, really favors MNM.
I always like to think of scaling as not just relative to the power curves that the itemization will bring into you, because you are correct. Like, Kog'Maw has a pretty ridiculous steep ramp of how powerful he gets over the course of the game, the more gold you invest to him. But more so, if he can do that uncontested. The analyst does get a great job talking about the backline threat there. But if your Kog'Maw is worth, let's say, 10,000 gold, and Dreedy is in a position, or this Cho'Gath is in a position where you find the single rupture or the killer Vladimir ultimate, suddenly that rupture is a 10,000 gold rupture, and the scaling doesn't really mean anything for Kog'Maw. So it's just something to watch in terms of the execution of these fights. Like, if Monk is untouched and he just gets to be this massive juggernaut with all these shields, then yeah, obviously this is bad news bears. But if Barrage can catch him and punish him when he does things like that, then suddenly it doesn't even matter how much your Kog'Maw is going to scale.
Orcs did hit on this on the desk, though, and he highlighted that what he liked about the MNM comp was it wasn't just about Monk. If Monk does find himself caught, Aesthetic and Energy are also carries, but Monk actually overstepping in, easily taken out. Flipper jumps in onto Energy as he does get tethered up. Eli runs away, the shockwave will land onto Yadrin, and MNM just kind of leave their Kog'Maw alone to get taken down, and now Barrage are just going to kind of strong arm their way towards this dragon.
Yeah, split fight. The front line was not there to help create space for Monk, and now with the Cho'Gath ultimate as well as the jungler with access on. And
oh! Energy, you beast!
Oh no. That's a disaster. So you were just talking about how at this point in the game, the Misfortune would like to be ahead of the Kog'Maw because the scaling on these two champions is obviously very different. One of the things that could have helped out Misfortune here is if you were stacking Infernals and you have an Infernal Stole to stay relevant in the game. So a steal like that one's gonna sting.
Really, really gonna sting, and that puts MNM one away from that Infernal Soul to be coming up in 4 minutes time. So we're looking at around a 26, 27 minute Soul. If MNM get the next dragon, that's just going to do wonders. Monk now got the Rage Blade in his pocket, or the Blade of the Ruin King.
I didn't check at the time. Hopefully we get a look at the replay. Cho'Gath might not have had Chomp available to secure the objective. If that's the case, then they just need to kind of rework what the responsibility is into controlling space around that zone. You know, if Cho can't burst the Drake, then he actually needs to turn and be the massive frontline to dissuade steals like that happening. So maybe in the replay we'll get a clearer look at what happened. But again, I think that there's something to take back to the tape here, as Cho does have Chomp.
Yeah, there's...
Unless it's a spectator bug.
He used it.
That is just the yikes on the map.
He actually used it and got outsmited by an Orianna Q.
You hate to see it.
Eli, able to dodge away, a lot of movement speed. If you're Barrage at this point, you have to be a little bit worried about this Baron.
I think you're a lot a bit worried about this Baron.
You've got the baby Baron. He will melt through that with the Blade of the Ruin King, with the Guinzoos. Very, very scary stuff for Barrage. And you can see at the moment the vision control very heavily in favor of Barrage around this area. As Yadrin and Flipper, like you predicted, just sitting in each other's pockets. Eli's silenced, stunned up, and Yadrin eats a Karma for dinner. Aesthetic's going to make his way over, does get slowed down, dodges out on the Rupture. That's going to force the ultimate out from Flipper. Aesthetic just running him down. A lot of damage off there.
Yeah, room to rub. You can still see how much damage this, Kindred is doing. You were just talking about the great points that Ox made on the desk. You know, talking that MNM's composition isn't just a one-threat comp because you also have that Orianna and that Kindred. I do want to point out, though, that while Barrage are continually finding these picks using Cho and Volibear, that Dreedy is getting more and more time into the side lane with this Maokai. And yeah, it's not translating into a massive CS lead or anything like that, but for me, the insurance policy really is this Vladimir for the Cho'Gath and the Orianna, you know, getting that access into the back line. So he's actually just ping-ponging this wave. I wish he would have held it a little bit, but looks like we're just gonna hard shove.
Yep. He's got the teleport. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one, but for now...
He just sees that Maokai is going to push it back into him, so he's just doing a good job. He's just power farming, just a vacuum cleaner, just Krug's wave, Krug's wave. He's got 1 minute 48 seconds to stack as much gold as possible into little Vladimir's pockets.
Aesthetic can always get over the wall, the Dance of Arrows. I do actually want to quickly take a look at how many stacks Aesthetics is on, but might have to hold on that one as Khan's getting jumped into by Flipper, but it is also Khan, and you highlighted this earlier. You can't really cut this tree down.
No, at this point, Maokai is actually just a delivery service for minions into Dreedy's mouth by constantly having the wave that far forward, but he's not doing much else.
Yeah, he's not. He's just shoving wave, resetting, hoping for a team fight to break out at some point. Aesthetic actually has 4 stacks on the Kindred, so they've got that increased range. It's the kind of first major power spike. I did check earlier, and he actually had that. So he hasn't been able to pick up too many more stacks in the last, I think it was about 7 minutes. So... kind of taking a bit of a chill pill on that one. But Monk is not taking a chill pill. He is ramping up exceptionally fast right now. And Flipper maybe getting run down as the Spooky Ghosts lay down the ice carpet, and Aesthetic and Monk will get slowed down, and that would just stop them from chasing into Flipper a little bit more.
Now,
Both of these teams.
We're positioning here for this Infernal that you're just about to call out, spawning in 30 seconds. Want to call out Kakan has a stopwatch as well as 2 forms of magic resistance, a completed item, as well as a Negatron cloak. So he definitely needs to not split off from his team and just stand in front of people. The only person who's really going to have any sort of kill threat on him is Misfortune.
Oh my lord, Flipper's getting absolutely liquefied by Monk. Dreedy can't find his way in, the bullet time comes out, and Aesthetic's just jumping onto Yadrin. Flipper jumps over the wall for him. Lamb's Respite's going to get used. Energy zoning the rest of the team away with the ball as Flipper is just evaporated. Shockwave onto Den Voxney. And MNM will just turn towards the dragon.
Multiple members of MNM really stepping up there. You already called it. Monk opened up with massive damage on there to force Barrage into a desperation attempt on the play, but also huge shout out to Energy on the zoning control there. Split Barrage in half and just let the rest of his team really clean that up and then secure that Infernal Soul. This is a huge win for MNM as fighting for their lives, backs against the wall, will not go quietly in the night to relegation.
It really felt like MNM would never go quietly. All season, there's been a lot of drama with this team, but even so, it's always been a spectacular game. Whether it was Monk picking the Cogmore mid and running it down, it was still spectacular. This is so on brand for them.
Obviously, his KDA isn't necessarily showcasing how much damage he is outputting here, but there you go. Opened up on Flipper and basically forced Barrage to just say, we have to turn and burn, we must team fight. Big Misfortune ultimate forces MNM to reposition. Flipper then is like, I have to try to burst Aesthetic. The Kindred ultimate comes out clutch. He's able to force him way to safety, and then right there, Energy over the side, zones away 3 people, also taps a nice Shockwave to give room for the rest of his team to force Barrage off Drake before MNM turn and secure.
And with that Infernal Drake now, the wave clear spikes, the damage spikes. Barrage pinging the Baron. They want to start it up. At this point, they actually can do it somewhat quickly. Remember, they've got the feast available to Yadrin. And MNM are not set up to go for this right now, though.
Like, look at Nightmares. He steps forward. He's on a controller. He knows that he's being seen. This is so obvious. This is literally Barrage being like, we have to force something here. They get a teleport. They pull off of it, but they should just kind of rinse and repeat this one.
Yeah, Kakan's taking a lot of damage in the pit from Baron.
Look at Dreedy. Look at
come out. Kakan still got in there. Yeah, Dreedy is on that TP, like you said. Monk's just going to call him out on it and take so much of his health bar. Monk's just running the Dreedy down. Now it's Den Voxney. The Hemo Plague and Dead gets the pop. Monk goes down, and Barrage will force MNM away.
That's the Monk I remember.
There it is.
From hero to zero, real fast right there. I like the big D energy there, thinking that he could just pop Dreedy down, but as soon as Misfortune came around the corner, stat ball, checked him.
He was doing a Fnatic limit testing.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I try to find nice ways to call out people's in.
He was maximizing the Kog'Maw passive. We talked about it earlier.
Aesthetic's gonna have to make a miracle steal. That's a big shockwave onto Flipper. Bullet time comes in and Kakan jumps down. They actually smite for health, and now the Baron is already low. Aesthetic's looking to get it. Actually uses the Lamb's Respite, trying to bait the feast out. Yadrin's holding it for the moment. They're looking to get the dragon. I don't even know if we got it. Aesthetic is able to pick it up as Yadrin gets taken down. Kakan gets a shutdown to boot as well, and MNM walk away with the Baron.
Hero plays from Energy, Kakan, and Aesthetic to really secure that one. Monk now just even respawn is trying to join his team, but Barrage, such a disastrous team fight. They just don't change their call in the heat of the moment. They look completely lost, and they get torn apart when it comes to these 5v5s.
They just look lost, and that was without Monk as well. That was 4 versus 5. Got absolutely squashed and lost the Baron. MNM are just going to strip them of their jungle camps as we have a little look at that fight once again.
And it just looks like, you know, they pulled off the Baron maybe a little bit too late. The Baron had done pretty massive damage to them because they stopped tanking. Misfortune fell down so low. And then this Kindred ultimate just ruins MF's day. You know, maybe if that Kindred ultimate doesn't go down, she's able to kill Energy there, but pretty clutch coming out of MNM.
Monk has no friends nearby. He gets slowed down. GLP connects, and Monk actually just flashes into Yatrin's face. The world grows. Monk gets the kill. 1 versus 4. And now MNM look to collapse. Nightmare's health bar goes very low. Monk using the passive well. Eli steps forward, but Make It Rain will just slow them down enough here. And MNM have to step away.
Okay, I'm going to say, yes, there were 4 people there, but I will say it was a 1v1. I think the other 3 were just kind of watching for it. Speaking of watching.
Sorry, what? What are MNM doing? Well, they lost Baron on 2 members. And they may just lose Kakan.
The Kog'Maw passive.
That was pretty sick, though, by Monk. Just to flash into Yadrin's face and go, no, we're melee now.
I mean, he knew he was dead. Okay, looking forward. Next predictions. Elder Drake in 1 minute. Guess what? They're going to fight over that. Misfortune is just a ball of stats. You can see that if she gets to hit anyone, she basically 3 shots Orianna, Kindred, or Kog'Maw. So this Kindred ultimate is actually super important. We're taking another look at this one. Monk's like, I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me. And okay, I'll give it to you. It wasn't just a 1v1. It was a 1.5. Lulu was there with the wild growth.
Exactly. The Rabadingles has been picked up onto Energy, level 16 as well, so 3 points into that Shockwave. So far, the Shockwaves haven't been big, but they've been impactful. I think that's the way to look at them. He's been able to zone key members out of the fights, or at least the winning fights for MNM with them. Like you said, Elder's spawning up, and MNM are setting up to get control of the area.
Now, it should be noted that Dreedy is looking to reset his position. He does have teleport. Maybe this is finally time for Barrage to find the Miracle Flank and get that big Vladimir damage. Has the completed Rabadont as well as the stopwatch.
He's going for it.
There we go. He's going to feel really confident to do this. Can he find his mark? He's looking
Kakan's
for
on the flank. That's a massive Nature's Grasp as Flipper jumps into Monk's waiting hands, gets himself a double kill as Yadrin's going to go down. Monk finds a triple kill. They smash them Voxley back, and now he's looking to turn it onto Dreedy. Dreedy goes golden. Everybody getting healed up with the Lamb's Respite as the shutdown's picked up for Aesthetic. MNM find 4, and they're going to find the base. Barrage crumble when it counts.
Too little too late from Dreedy there. That was a mile long on the engagement, and now it looks like it is all MNM. Kakan can just free tank this for days. Misfortune's trying to go for the wave, but I think she's just giving it up.
Yeah, that's just going to easy kill picked up for Aesthetic. Nobody spawning up in time. 12 seconds on Flipper. They don't have the damage. They don't have the numbers. MNM put on a Kog'Maw masterclass. 33 minutes on the clock, and they close it out versus Barrage, keeping their hopes alive.
And just trying to showcase what this roster could have been from the very beginning. Yeah, I think Monk's going to stand out here just because it was kind of his famous Kog'Maw. And yes, he was doing ridiculous damage, but I do want to give a huge shout out to Kakan up into that top side. Kindred was doing, Aesthetic on Kindred was doing amazing, and Energy on the Orianna. Those 3 put together really allowed Monk to shine, especially in those team fights. Amazing control from the top side of the map from MNM.
Yeah, you highlighted it. Kakan had a really good game, and that last team fight was whole-handedly decided by him. Dreedy teleports in. Kakan goes, we're just going to walk away from you and kill your team. And there's nothing you can do. Just flawlessly executed in that last team fight by MNM. And like I said, that keeps their dreams of avoiding relegations alive for now. And for Barrage, it's kind of out of their hands at this point, whether or not they make playoffs, and relegations could also be something that looms over them at this point. So scary situation for Barrage to be in. But guys, we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll have our analyst desk break that down. So we will see you in a second.
Guys, they did it. MNM, 2 wins in the NLC. They have technically, for the moment, avoided relegations as well. There is still a battle to be fought there, but MNM have taken the first step. And Monk definitely didn't carry, but he kind of carried.
Come on.
it was
Thanks, Counter. Come on, that was my opening line. I literally wanted to say that Monk did carry, but in his own way. He died twice in 2 very, very specific fights that MNM needed their carry, but little did they know they were mind playing their opponents. They made them think that the 4v5 was in favor of Barrage, but it wasn't, because the Dragon went to the Orianna with 34 HP left, and a Dragon at the Baron. Kakan literally played them so well right there. In all honesty, it felt like, again, Barrage had the basics. It was completely done in the details, and MNM, once ahead, they stayed ahead. At some point, you couldn't get anywhere near that Kog'Maw, because you know what? No matter if you put 2 or 3 or 4 tanks in front of him, this is what the Kog'Maw machine is meant to do, destroy tanks, and it showed.
Yeah, and definitely in that last team fight, you could see him shredding. But for me, I feel like this was just an impressive performance from MNM, who managed to win a 4v6 game. Monk, definitely positioning issues. I think they still have another game to play. He needs to not be where he is. That point where he's running down mid lane into the Vladimir, I'm like, you said it, Trouble, when we were talking about it. What was the game plan?
Is that the running it down mid? Is that the real running it down mid?
You know, it's hard to remember which point I'm talking about, because Monk's positioning was really off that game, and I think the rest of the team stepped up to facilitate him. I think the comp let them lean into the later game and come out successful. I think Aesthetic had a blinder game where he was playing around the dragons really effectively, setting that up as a win con. Kakan was really masterful in the Maokai, but there's still just this issue. We've seen good games from Monk. The Kai'Sa game was the one I'm talking about, but this was not a good one. But they got the win. They've avoided relegations for now. They still have it in their hands.
And despite that Clown Fiesta in the early game, where you really don't know what the hell is going on there, especially Aesthetic is just showing up in all of that. He was the consistent factor of MNM Gaming, as you said yourself, always there, securing the neutral objectives. But not only that, he's the guy who's ready with that Lamps Respite, really showing his mechanical prowess on the Kindred too. And I think he was a huge factor in MNM taking down Barrage, who despite their best efforts, couldn't make it.
That game, like, kind of just left me flabbergasted, but I'm actually really happy about, I'm actually really happy about the result, because it's made the whole group that much more interesting in general. We have a player of the match ready to go. There were so many that we could choose from. Orcs, I believe you've selected one of those, so let's have a look.
I mean, this is a situation where MNM are 4v5 without their primary carry. Baron is being started, and watch Aesthetic here. Big shockwave to cause disruption, but he slides into the pit. Smite comes down to flip and stay alive, but he still dies. And then Jadran. Jadran is trying to go for the steal here, but as he feasts, the ult from Aesthetic comes down, and then Aesthetic can pick it up with his Smite. So beautifully played to secure the Baron, and the team fight ends up going in favor of MNM as well, because trapped in a choke against a Maokai and an Orianna is a really rough spot. Considering they were 4v5 without the Kog'Maw there, MNM played that one really well.
And I just cannot stress enough, even with the previous roster, the guy who was always consistent, always there, always trying to push the team forward. We've praised Aesthetic enough, but Kakan has been so consistent up the top lane. I feel like he was a very important player in this particular game. He was the one who was trading back the kills in very silly scare misses that MNM should have never taken. And he used his advantage and his items in such a great way. I think his display of being the front line, but also winning games with the engage really shined in this game.
And I think some of that oh, sorry, my bad. I just think really quick that some of that goes down to the ease of the comp they had to actually execute. It's really easy when you have a Maokai and the Orianna and the Karma Shields to play this Maokai where you can just be this beefy frontliner. So I like the way they were going. It was very hard to not win this game in the late game.
Yeah, and I think like Khan did his job excellently that game, and I think it's nice that we praised him because it's someone that we've kind of brushed over, as Trouble said a few times. Do you know what? I'm actually really happy I get to have an interview with one of the MNM staff, and it's actually Officer Naughty, who I'm sure is over the moon with this victory, mate. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling ecstatic, to be honest. Like, what an amazing win for the guys, and it's really shown that the changes we've made and their hard work they put in is like really paid off. Really happy.
what has been the big work for this roster, you know, over the last couple of weeks, trying to go from where you were at the start of the season to where you are now? And, you know, it's not supposed to be a condescending question. Obviously, you know, you had some issues throughout the split, but what have been the big changes that you've looked to make, and what's been the most impactful changes that you think you've made, apart from maybe moving Monk down to back to AD carry, but like what has been the most impactful things that you've done?
So honestly, like from the start, it started with me, and it started with the decisions that I made and what I thought was best, and I was wrong. And obviously, we changed 2 players and brought in Eli and Energy, who have like are unbelievable. Like the Eli Monk synergy has gone really well. Energy, obviously, being a really veteran voice in the team, and has changed a lot of how we work. And then obviously, we brought in RNG as a coach, who's helping out a lot behind the scenes. It's just the attitude of the whole team has changed, and I think that's what we were lacking before, was synergy between players. Like, we had a good team, but we just didn't have the synergy there.
And you think, obviously it must feel bad, I think, cracking that code right at the end of the season, but it's not all is lost. You have another game left to go. Both you and Barrage are playing tomorrow, and that will kind of decide the fate of Group B, but I think quite clearly you have the tougher task in the form of Fnatic. What is your game plan going into that game? Like, you don't have to reveal specifics, but how are you as a team approaching that particular game?
So obviously, like, it's the only good thing is that we're going in with nothing to lose against Fnatic. We've obviously prepped really hard. We've worked really hard on it, and we know ourselves that if we can beat Fnatic, then it just shows like where we deserve to be. Because I obviously think we deserve to be in playoffs, but it's not going to happen. So I think if we beat Fnatic, then we are ready for it, and it will show that the level that we truly are at.
And do you know what? I really am looking forward to seeing that match tomorrow. I think you guys deserve everything that you've kind of accomplishing towards the end of this season. It's been a wild ride watching MNM, but it has been beautiful at the moments like this where you've really managed to pick up those victories. So, Officer Naughty, thank you so much for joining me, mate. And again, I do wish you massive luck going into that game tomorrow. It's going to be huge for MNM, and you're also a great advocate for MNM and in general, a great presence for the team. So honestly, you've been fantastic. Cheers, mate. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thanks everyone for supporting.
You got cut off at the
almost got his last word in.
He was trying to say thanks everyone for supporting the team.
Yeah, there you go. Orcs finished it off for him.
I just the fact that he said that they've been prepping specifically for their match versus Fnatic, and seeing how the energy, you know, in the team has changed, and the whole philosophy and the atmosphere and everything with the veterans coming in. Dan mentioned that was the last chance that Fnatic might have had to bleed playing versus Tricked. But they have one more game left to be played. And that's versus MNM tomorrow. I don't know, maybe pays off. You know what? Fnatic fell to Schalke in the LEC. Could see the same here with Fnatic and MNM.
I'd love to be proved wrong. Because I was looking at it, I was like, Tricked beating Fnatic. I was like, Fnatic MNM, last game of the split. Realistically, I think everyone's expecting Fnatic to win, but you know, you may be right. This is the opportunity. This is where Fnatic, maybe they've slowed down. They've already secured their spot in first, and MNM come out swinging. Maybe if Monk doesn't, you know, get caught out so much, there could be a possibility. But ultimately, MNM have kept their fate in their hands, and I think that's the big thing. They had an awful split for the majority of it, but finally towards the end they've actually got an opportunity where not only could they save themselves from relegations, but even if they do find themselves in relegations, this is a roster that we'd actually see making their way out again, and I think that's very different to what we had earlier in the split.
It's been a transformation, metamorphosis, really, for this roster to where they started to where they are now. You would barely recognize the team despite the familiar names. It has been a roller coaster, and that roller coaster has yet one more dip to go. We'll obviously see that tomorrow versus Fnatic. In the meantime, we're going to move towards our third game of the day. We'll see you guys very soon.